everyone, it's me, Squid Game! Where can it be happening now? Let's go. I'm sorry, spoilers.
We've watched the show, we've seen the strategies, we know the memes.
The memes. Like the
Does anyone actually stop to ask the question, could a death tournament like Squid Game actually be legal? Sure, there are people dying for cash, which immediately seems illegal, but then again, those contestants signed a contract. They even opted their way back into the game after voting to exit, knowing full well that their lives were on the line. Not only that, but the whole thing is taking place on an island that belongs to, well, we don't know who it belongs to, but is it outside of legal jurisdictions? Can it be? So again, I ask the question, could the Squid Game be legal? Let's just say that the answer isn't as clear-cut as you might expect, and may come up in a big reveal for Season 2.
Season 2. Case in point is a huge success in Netflix.
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Film Theory!
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Film Theory! Hello! Let's get started!
Today, I'm taking a brief time out on the Squid Game to introduce Theorist holiday merch. It's cool and warm at the same time and has some of our most unique pieces ever, including this neon green switch case, this incredible satin souvenir jacket, black and white joggers and t-shirts for when you're doing your best impression of a piano, and if you need to stay warm, boom, quilted jacket. Need to layer up with something a bit lighter? Boom, asymmetrical hoodie that was actually designed by a member of the Film Theorist community. No joke, they actually submitted this design as fan art over on the Game Theorists subreddit. I loved it so much that we reached out to her, purchased the design, and here it is now, translated into an actual article of clothing. Not only is this one of my favorite design pieces that we've just done from a design standpoint, but to know that it came from a member of the community makes it all the cooler.
Have such stronger significance to it.
This one makes me so happy. It's like walking around in a big ol' hug. And for the truly loyalist of loyal theorists, don't forget to bring it all home with an incredibly snuggly 4-channel fleecy blanket. This thing is perfect for game night, or, you know, on those occasions when you're Netflix and chilling and the action on screen gets a little bit too intense for your eyes. Squid Game is pretty mature, so hide from the action on screen with this blanket. There is so much more too that I haven't even mentioned, but most importantly of all, we ordered all of this merch well in advance to avoid all the supply chain issues that are happening right now for the holiday season. So when you order, you're gonna get your gifts fast so they can appear under the tree and you can use them all year. That said, the other side to that coin is once we're gone, we are just out. It is very, very hard to order stuff right now and get it in a reasonable amount of time. So if you are interested in any of these items, I encourage you to get it immediately because the supplies are extremely limited. And that's not me doing the whole like artificial scarcity, oh no, you gotta get them before they're, no, we just ordered what we thought we could sell, and so, you know, if one item tends to do really well, it's just gonna go and it's gone. Anyway, this stuff is gorgeous. The materials are so high quality. Everything is stitched in. It's an incredible lineup of merchandise. If you guys have ever bought Theory wear from us in the past, you know how high quality it is, how long it lasts, and how much we care about the designs that we're putting into your hands because we see it as an extension of all the things that we do on YouTube. And it's really important for us to get it right. And we think that you are gonna love it. You will love it. So check it out in the merch shelf right below this video. Pull it up in a new tab. Take a look after this video is done. I thank you so much for your consideration. Now back to Squid Game.
Back to the video.
Obviously, Squid Game needs no introduction at this point. I mean, the premise of get a bunch of people together on an island and pit them against each other in a series of playground games in order to survive just sells itself.
456 players.
It is the most watched Netflix series of all time. It's like on that Bird Box. It caused a huge surge in demand for honeycomb candy, pink jumpsuits, and white slider shoes, and it's prompting internet creators from all over to make their own versions of the game. Squid Games in Minecraft, Squid Games in Roblox, on TikTok, Squid Games with friends, and before the end of the year, my buddy
Mr. Beast
is doing his own version with 453 contestants all competing with the 6 games from the show. Now, obviously,
that was a huge success.
That's not gonna be real, but it prompts the question, could it be? In other words, Jimmy and the rest of the team aren't creating real death games, but if some aging, super wealthy bored guy dying of brain cancer wanted to arrange something exactly like this, complete with the death, would there be a legal way of doing it? After all, they signed a contract waiving their legal rights, so does that make the death game legal? What are the limits of contract law? Can you legally consent to a death game where the rules might result in you plunging to your death? Well, believe it or not, but the question of whether you can legally consent consent to a death game is something that has actually come up in real life. It sounds crazy, right? Like, who's looking into this case law? But it's come up in numerous cases in the US, specifically with games like Russian roulette, which, disclaimer, is a terrible idea, disclaimer, and should never be attempted ever. Flashing warning lights, awful, awful, stupid, stupid, dumb, don't do this. But
don't do this. Please don't do this. Human lives are important. This is a horrible game. Don't do this. Thank you so much. Don't do this.
Basically, it's a, game is not the right word. It is a stupid, dumb, stupid, stupid thing where a single bullet is loaded into an empty chamber of a gun. It's spun and randomized. People then take turns pulling the trigger until the gun fires. Loser is the one who dies. Now, like I said, some really
seriously don't do this.
Stupid, dumb people do this, and they actually wind up dying. But in an interesting legal twist, the other individuals involved in that game get convicted for manslaughter, even when the person who died is pulling their own trigger and doing so voluntarily. Participating in, let alone running a death game, is not legal, even if everyone who's involved knows exactly what they're signing up for. Which means two things. First, that players voting themselves back into the Squid Game doesn't make things any more legal. You see, in Squid Game's second episode, after learning that losing any individual challenge means death, the participants vote to end the game, only to realize that the real world back home isn't that much better than Murder Island. As a result, many contestants voluntarily choose to come back in for another chance to play.
I volunteer as tribute.
From that point forward, they're back.
No. They volunteer as tribute.
Back of their own volition, knowing full well the sort of game that it is and the incredible stakes that are on the line. But all of it doesn't matter. The games are going to be illegal regardless. But you know what that decision does change? It suddenly makes every participant guilty.
Everybody is a criminal.
For the first game, it could be argued in a court of law that the players didn't know what they were signing up for. Who would have suspected that they'd be transported off to a remote island in the middle of nowhere and forced to contend with a sniper-powered motion detector? No one. That would have clearly been like their, what, second or third guess as to what was going on? At that point in the show, they would have all been innocent. But coming back willfully knowing that this was a game where their fellow competitors were gonna die, suddenly they're guilty by association. Their actions are perpetuating the game, just like in the Russian roulette example, and they're indirectly, or sometimes even directly, getting other people killed, and that meets the definition of manslaughter. Even our hero Gian, who actively tries to avoid killing anyone throughout the series, guilty. Were he to alert the authorities about the illegal death games, his winnings would be seized immediately, and he'd likely have to go to court to answer for all his crimes. Over here in the US, manslaughter equates to anything between 3 and 20 years in prison. So over 400 counts of manslaughter for all the failed contestants? That's potentially 8,000 years in prison.
Alright, so case in point, after 8,000 years, on the 8,001st year, 8,001 year, you'll be free. Yeah! I'm joking.
Alright, Gian, you're not gonna need that fancy new hairstyle in the lockup. The US actually has a lot of specific laws around things like games that involve violence and the threat of injury, given our nation's history of illegal pistol dueling as well as other legal but still violent sports like boxing. That said, all of those specific rules generally fall under a few basic legal principles that apply almost universally, and would almost certainly apply to games hosted in South Korea, like we see in the show, or EU member nations, or pretty much any country on Earth. One of those overarching guiding principles is that you can't legally authorize a contract for illegal activities. I mean, nobody's stopping you from printing out a piece of paper and signing your name on it, but the entire point of a contract is to protect all the parties involved. For example, in Ohio, where I grew up, there are hot wings restaurants that have certain items on the menu that require you to sign a waiver before you'll be allowed to order them. If I were to order that menu item and then try to sue the restaurant for damages after I spent the next day on the toilet, they could just point to the contract and say, look, this guy knew what he was getting himself into. It's not our fault that his bowels are currently erupting like Mount Vesuvius. But you see, that agreement would protect them against any criminal charges that would be held against them, like criminal negligence or reckless endangerment, which are crimes that you go to jail for. For example, even if I signed the waiver saying I consent to whatever you give me to put in my mouth, the restaurant can't knowingly serve me expired food, or rat poison, or other things that would violate health codes and or actually pose a serious threat to my life and safety, regardless of whatever legalese they put into that contract. Doing stuff like that is just illegal, and no amount of putting it on a piece of paper paper and getting other people to sign it is gonna make it any more legal. The long and short of it is that no contract is gonna change the fact that illegal things are just still illegal. You can't consent to getting killed for money. As far as I can tell, it's true of every country's legal system. The US, South Korea, anywhere else. But here's the real question that got me thinking. What if the murder games aren't taking place on South Korean soil? What if they're, as we see in the series, being hosted on a private island? As we've stated, this would be illegal in any country, but is there a way to escape national boundaries and host a death game such that those laws don't apply to you? Well, I sat down, did the research, and the question of what laws apply outside of national borders is actually a lot more complicated and also a lot more interesting than I expected. First off, going to your own remote island, even if it is privately owned, isn't going to legally help you. In fact, the term private island is kind of a misnomer. Yeah, you can have an island that's your own private property, but that doesn't automatically make it legal for you to do whatever you want there. I mean, think about it this way. I own a house. That is my private property, but that doesn't mean that I can just start cooking meth down in the basement. My so-called private property is still legally under the jurisdiction of the US government. The same is true for private islands. Every piece of land on Earth has been claimed by some nation. So what if you're not on land? How about international waters, the fabled high seas where supposedly there are no rules because you're beyond the bounds of any nation? Well, first, you gotta get there. Nations not only own their land, but also govern the immediate water around them. The coastal waters of each nation are what are known as territorial waters, which, according to a 1982 United Nations convention, extend 12 nautical miles away from the coast. There's also an exclusive economic zone that extends 200 nautical miles, 370 kilometers, or 230 regular miles, because for some reason nautical miles and just miles are different. Apparently that difference makes it easier to measure longitude and latitude. Anyway, beyond those 230 miles away from the shore, then you've reached international waters. And the idea of floating out into international waters to get away with your illegal death game isn't as outlandish as it might first seem. After all, many cruise ships have casinos that only operate when the ship is sailing in international waters. That seems like it should be a case of using the international waters loophole to circumvent the law, but it's not. You see, that's just a common misunderstanding. According to international law, any vessel at sea has to be registered to a country whose flag they then carry. If you fly a South Korean flag, you're governed by South Korean law. If you fly a US flag, you're governed by the United States law. So let's go back to the whole casino example. This isn't a matter of the law not applying to the boat, but rather different laws applying to the boat at different distances from the land. Once a ship crosses into the territorial waters of a country or state where gambling isn't allowed, those casinos on board need to be shut down, because now they're technically playing by that territory's rules. Out in international waters, the casinos are able to reopen because now the boat is following the federal laws of whichever country's flag they fly. But even in those international waters, you can tell that certain rules are still applicable. The casino is still closed to people younger than 21 in accordance with US law. Or if it's flying a flag from a country with more permissive gambling laws like the UK, then the casino could be open to people as young as 18. And by the way, you can't get around this by not flying any flag. In fact, not flying a country's flag makes you even more suspicious. And under international law, any other country's vessel can board your vessel, inspect it, and then arrest you when they see the mountain of corpses that have been piling up over the course of your death game. And even if nobody catches you while you're at sea, the moment that you pull into a port, well, then you can get arrested for any of the crimes that you've committed. Odds are that you're gonna have to pull up to port at some point for, I don't know, things like clean water, more eggs, tempered glass panes, some bleach to clean out the bloodstains from your uniforms. There's a lot of stuff you're gonna need to restock. And if your plan around that is, I'll just stay out at sea and have everything delivered to me, well, anyone who delivers is aiding and abetting you and will then get the handcuffs slapped on them. Come on! Why can't a guy just do one simple thing? One simple thing like giving people the chance to get out of their financial destitution by forcing them to put their lives on the line while rich investors bet on the winners and losers like horses in a race.
Alright, that sounds overly simplified, but...
This is why we can't have nice things. Fine, I can't do it on land. I can't do it in a vessel on the sea. What if I create my own frickin' country? After all, me and my poorly acted friends are rich. We're so rich and so bored that we spend our money doing stuff like this, so why not create a new island where we can continue doing stuff like this and not have to worry about some government coming to slap cuffs on us? Artificial islands are already a thing. Numerous countries, including Japan, the Netherlands, India, and Austria, have all created artificial islands. Most of them exist to serve as airports, but one of Japan's artificial artificial islands is home to hotels, a convention center, they even have an IKEA. So what if you go out into international waters and build your own artificial island there? Can I build my own country that disregards all the rules? Create giant games of deadly tug-of-war? Build slides with no height or safety restrictions? Construct railings that have uprights that are more than a foot apart? Woo, spooky and dangerous, but I can do it because it's my country and I can play by whatever rules I want. And you see, now we're getting somewhere. This is actually a topic that's seriously being discussed today. In fact, it's the basis of a movement known as seasteading. This idea has been floated by organizations like the Seasteading Institute, as well as private companies like Blue Seed, which aim to float a ship near Silicon Valley that would allow entrepreneurs from around the globe to gather and work on startup businesses without being at the mercy of the visa system and taxes. A project that I gotta say sounds like the most Silicon Valley thing ever, and also one that's been on hold since 2013 due to, quote, insufficient funding. Come on.
And if you think about it, it sounds like what a James Bond or like a Tom Cruise villain will do. Like what the antagonists, what the bad guys will do.
You're telling me that no tech billionaire has the money to get this thing off the ground, literally because it's gonna be out in the water? Jeff Bezos, where are you at, bro? I guess he chose space over sea. And you see, there might be a good reason for that. The question of whether you can start your own country and get recognized as a sovereign state is an absurdly complicated topic, with tons of legal implications that remain unanswered on account of nobody actually making a serious effort to do that sort of thing. But luckily, we don't need to get into the nitty-gritty about that today, because we only need to know one basic and simple fact. You can't escape international law by starting your own country. There's such a thing as universal jurisdiction that covers certain universal crimes, like human trafficking, torture, and other human rights violations that you can get arrested for while traveling through international waters.
And case in point, there'll be punishment. And yeah, you can't just like you can't just go against that many human beings. Okay.
The entire point of this is to designate crimes against humanity as a set of standards that everyone is held to, even if a country might define them as illegal on their land. In the past, these universal jurisdictions have been invoked to hold military leaders responsible for war crimes, or hold government officials accountable when they're responsible for acts of genocide. So, death game? Yeah, it's not gonna fly. Having your participants sign a contract doesn't work. Buying your own private island doesn't work. Taking to the high seas doesn't work. Even creating your own country doesn't work. But there is still one final option here, and this one sadly does work. And that—
okay, this is going to be rural stuff. I'm sorry. It's going to be very sad that it's the truth.
being so powerful that the rules don't apply to you. Everything that we've talked about today is the way that things should be, but sadly, as I'm sure we're all aware of in the real world, despite the existence of international law and universal jurisdiction and things like that, plenty of countries still commit human rights violations and get away with it. Even though we'd expect things like universal jurisdiction to allow organizations like the UN to intervene in cases of human abuse, the grim reality is that actually going in and arresting the officials responsible is sometimes impossible without risking wars that would result in many more deaths, especially when nuclear powers are involved.
Case in point, you do know of the term MAD, MAD, mutually assured destruction. That means you kill me, you attack me, I'll make sure that both of us, boom. Yeah,
Case in point, North Korea continues to commit numerous human rights abuses, something that the United Nations Human Rights Council has spent years investigating, with a recent report in 2020 based on 100 first-hand accounts. This is the kind of thing that universal jurisdiction provisions under international law should prevent, but don't, because North Korea as a nuclear power is able to get away with it. Now, when it comes to heavy subject matter like this, I'm always going to hesitate to draw comparisons between fictional stories and real life, because I don't want to do it in a way that's going to trivialize the death and suffering of real people, but I do think in this case that it's actually reflective of one of the central themes featured in Squid Game. Regardless of how illegal something might be, the people responsible for torture, death, and absolute brutality can get away with it simply by how powerful they are. By having a character from North Korea who participates in the Squid Game specifically because she wants to help her family escape from the brutal regime, the show is directly drawing attention to that. In fact, given how willing the show has been to address this topic in season 1 by prominently featuring a North Korean defector as one of its central characters, it wouldn't surprise me at all if we were to find out in the inevitable season 2 that the games are actually held on an island under North Korean jurisdiction. While there is no legal loophole that I could find that would make the Squid Games legal, the real world has shown us that it doesn't matter how illegal your actions are if you're operating under the authority of certain corrupt regimes. And given their track record, it wouldn't surprise me to see North Korea turning a blind eye to the ultra-wealthy organizing games where people are killed for sport as long as they get to see a cut of that money. Setting the games on an island under North Korean jurisdiction not only logically makes sense from a geographical, plot-based, and world-building standpoint, but it would also fit in with the themes that the show is already exploring in its first season. And that, my friends, is the sad and complicated truth of the Squid Game.
That's quite sad. It should be, but if you have power, no one can touch you.
While it might seem stupid to ask the question of could something like this be legal, the real world answer to that actually matters a lot because it's happening around us each and every day. But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory. And just one final reminder that that merch is available right below this video. If you are interested at all in getting more Film Theorist specific merch, that amazing asymmetric hoodie designed by a member of the film theory community is available right now. If you want to see more film theory merch down the line, showing your support for that item actually tells us, hey, people want to wear their film theory pride, because up till now they've just really liked the neon green and black, and so we've leaned in on that. But support film theory, friends. That's your item. And as a reminder, if you order early, you'll be sure to get that before the Christmas season, which is, you know, difficult to do nowadays for a lot of people, but we've taken care of that in advance. So anyway, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
Well, thank you all so much for watching this video together with me. I hope you find this video very interesting and just quite unique to watch. I'm just glad that Map Heads at the end of the video does up with something like a Anyways, if you do like this video, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to my channel and comment down below if you have anything to share with us. Don't forget to follow my channel and sincerely appreciate all of your support and encouragement for my work. It's very motivating, uplifting, and encouraging to see all your positivity, wholesomeness, and yeah. But hey, that's just a theory, a film theory, and cut. Okay. And I hope to see you all in my next video. Thank you so much. I'm really thankful, grateful, and appreciative for all your support. Subscribe!